anytime that you enter anxiety, it's probably because you forgot something that God did. You shift your focus onto what God has done in your life as to all the horrible stuff that's going on.
The act of persevering through hardships leads to honestly just fruit in your life. Joy is a choice. Gratitude is a choice. Anxiety and fear is real, and there's a million reasons why you should be fearful and anxious, because the world is filled with things that can make you fearful and anxious. But, that's why you have to take your thoughts captive every day.
God has not given me a spirit of fear. I'm forgetting God's ways right now. I would get out your journal.
Get out your journal. Get one of them thick journals.
Get to the gym. Now.
All right, you guys, welcome to the Talk More with Lord podcast. Happy Saturday. We are recording today. We're actually going to be recording, I'm going to be recording 2 episodes because I'm actually going to be out of town next weekend. Tyler and I are going to the lake with my family, which will be super fun. But today's episode, we have a very fun guest, Tyler, my boyfriend, which you guys have already heard him on here before, but we're going to be talking about some fun things today, just kind of how to have a grateful attitude, a positive attitude, even when you don't feel like it. So we're really excited to talk about that.
Stoked.
But before we get started, like we always do, silly, goofy thing of the week, just to kind of give us an update on how you're doing, anything funny that's happened. So do you want to kick it off, Tyler? What's a silly, goofy thing that happened to you this week?
Yeah.
Or lately. It doesn't even have to be this week because it's been a while.
Yeah. I don't know if it's something that happened to me, but I can be silly and goofy sometimes.
Yeah, you can.
I think one of my main issues is starting projects and not finishing them, as you know so well.
Yes.
Lauren.
Yes.
Because I have a lot of different hobbies, and I love to create, and then I just move on to the next thing like a toddler. But for the past few weeks, I've been trying to finish a song that I was writing, and I love it. My friends have been very encouraging, and I can't finish it.
Okay, so Tyler's being humble right now because he actually knows how to produce a song from start to finish. He does the guitar, but he also knows how to do the back end of it, all the beats and everything that goes into a song that you listen to. He knows how to do all of it, which is really impressive.
Yeah.
Not a lot of people can say that they can do that because normally it's you do one or the other, right? Correct me if I'm wrong. I don't know enough about music, but you kind of know how to do everything.
Yeah, it's kind of a blessing and a curse. I mean, any musicians listening are going to know because you start by playing an instrument and then you get a DAW system, which is Pro Tools or Logic, and then you try and build new stuff, and then you just get down into this rabbit hole, and you figure out you're not as good as you think you are at producing and creating music. And I would say that's my main issue is
I wouldn't say that's true for you.
Well, I'm not an expert,
right,
at all things. So
you know enough. Yeah.
I know,
but you're not
I know enough to get started, and
right,
then to actually finish it. But that's why I really want to finish this project, is because I'm having to learn so much. It's a different music style than I'm used to because I'm more blues, rock, and this is
more vibey, poppy-esque.
Yeah. And so I'm trying to create synth sounds with my guitar. I'm also trying to do vocals on it, and I'm not a vocalist. So anyways, that's why I want to finish it, because I know it's going to make me a more rounded musician in general. But you remember, even Lauren tried to do some vocals.
Yeah, we were sitting there in his room, with our little microphones, and I tried to whip out the vocals. And I was
She was like,
I was like,
got
take this mic away from
She's
me.
Like, I got this. And she's like, I sound like a
but then you
4-year-old.
I sound like a toddler that like stole your little. No, I was like, I sound like your little sister that just like stole your microphone.
Yeah.
But you did end up keeping one of the little clips in there.
Yeah.
It was like a ad lib moment where we were joking around.
Well, you were doing a vocal part, and I was looking at you doing.
You were like,
yeah, and
like egging me on.
And then she said, "Stop doing that."
But I said it in a really funny voice because I was like laughing, and then he clipped it,
pitched it up.
Yeah,
now it's the best.
It's in there, so maybe stay tuned, you guys. I'm sure it'll be somewhere someday, but
a couple years.
Yeah, in a couple years. Yeah, I think. So if you guys don't know this about me already, I'm very fascinated by the Enneagram. And for those of you that don't know what that is, it's like a personality test, but it's one of the more like, I would say, accurate personality tests because it really goes into like your deep fears and core just like drivers of like what makes you who you are. And Tyler is a 7 on the Enneagram, and 7s are, I think the enthusiast is what it's called, but that's one of their things is they typically, like, you are the jack of all trades. You're really good at a lot of things, like very talented and gifted at so many different areas, which is, I would say, very true for you because you are so good at everything. Like anything you try, I feel like you're a very fast learner, but then a lot of times you can like start a project and just move on to the next thing. So that's like one of the things of the 7s. I'm a 9 on the Enneagram, and which is the peacemaker. So the wings of the Enneagram are like, I'll make this short, but it's like wing 8 or wing 1 are kind of like what makes somebody more outgoing or whatever. And so anyway, I just think it's interesting.
Yeah.
How you can like balance somebody out with your different personalities.
It was scary reading what a 7 was.
Yeah.
On the gram.
On the gram.
I was like,
it's so accurate.
I felt seen.
Yes. You like read it and you're like, oh, that's scary. Cool. Well, let's get into the episode. This episode's going to be, we were kind of talking about like what we wanted to share today. And I thought it would be fun to talk about gratitude and just keeping a positive attitude, because I think that a lot of people will kind of point that out in me, which is such a compliment because obviously like portraying a positive attitude on my Instagram or wherever it is, people will say like, that's, you know, how do you stay so positive, or like, how do you stay so grateful? And I am glad that we're talking about this together because Tyler is actually like one of the most optimistic people I've ever met. You are like such a light when it comes to just staying positive, and I felt like this would be a good topic for us to kind of get into when it comes to like, I don't know, I think everyone deals with anxiety and deals with situations where you have the temptation to just cripple yourself into a ball and just be like, woe is me. And I feel like this takes practice to kind of switch your mind. So we'll get into maybe some like personal examples of maybe like a hard time that you've been through or an example, and then get into kind of like some more practical steps of like, how do you keep a grateful mind? How do you keep a positive attitude throughout your life?
Yeah.
So,
I love that. And I sometimes am, well, maybe you can speak to this, but too positive.
Yeah.
I don't know if that's really a thing. I don't believe you can be too positive, but you've pointed out in a few areas that I can be ignorant to reality.
Yeah.
I'm like, oh, it's fine. God's got it, you know? So I love gratitude. When I was growing up, though, I remember going to church and, you know, talking with my mentors, and they're like, oh, you just got to be thankful. You just got to be positive. You know what I mean? It helps everything. And I think we all hear that all the time. But, you know, why is that actually helpful? You know, what does it do in your brain? What does it do in your spirit and soul? And I kind of want to start off with a quote here. I think it's from Alex Hermosi, a super popular guy on Instagram. And he talks about confidence and what is real confidence. And a lot of us think confidence is just what you say to yourself, like self-talk. And that's kind of how I think people think what gratitude and thankfulness is. It's just saying a couple words, just saying, oh, I'm thankful, I'm positive, I'm thankful, I'm positive. In the same way, you'll speak to yourself with positive affirmations, but it doesn't really exactly translate to having confidence. So, obviously we've all been through a lot of stuff, and probably all of us wake up in the morning with some sort of anxiety. I know I do. Yeah. I mean, I'm guessing you struggle with anxiety.
Yeah, certainly.
Yeah. So I just want to talk about, first, just some biblical stories, really quick, and then what those mean to me, and then my daily practices, and things I do to make sure that anxiety doesn't hit me randomly throughout the day. And if anxiety hits me randomly throughout the day, what's going on? Why am I feeling it? And is it something that I can overcome?
Before you get into that really quick, I wanted to say, I think that everyone does deal with, I don't think being positive is like, oh, she's just so positive. I think it's like a very proactive pursuit to cultivate positivity in your life. I think this takes practice, and that's kind of what we'll get into more nitty gritty, like after we share some of the stuff. But that's why I just wanted to open it up in this conversation, because I think that it takes practice and like active mindfulness to be this way. Mm-hmm. And I think over the years I've gotten better at that, and I'm not perfect by any means, but I just thought it was interesting. So
yeah. And just to dive into it, I think anxiety at its core is forgetfulness.
Yeah.
And I'll kind of get into that with a biblical story here. But we all know the story in Mark where Jesus feeds the thousands with the bread loaves and the fish, and there's ample left over. Super common story, and I think that we all love that story, but my favorite part of that story is what happens after they leave the shore and get on the boat with Jesus. So long story short, Jesus does a miracle. He gives thanks over the food and is able to multiply it and feed everybody, and they have so much left over. But then they go on a boat and leave, and the disciples forgot to bring food. And Jesus brings that up to them about lunch, essentially. And what happens is the disciples start to talk amongst themselves. They have anxiety and fear because they're on a boat with no food. And so they're in anxiety and they're in fear moments after Jesus does a miracle of just pretty much multiplying food. And so Jesus says something to them that I say to myself all the time is, do you remember? And that was his main point as soon as they're on the boat.
Or he is like, have you forgotten what I literally just did?
Yeah.
Like he's just asking that question.
And they did.
Yeah.
They literally forgot what he just did. So to me, that's a story of, anytime that you enter anxiety, it's probably because you forgot something that God did. Because one of my favorite points is when Jesus does miracles in your life and when God's good in your life, he loves to do good things for you, but the main thing he's trying to do is teach you his ways. And if you can remember his ways, you have this almost access to confidence. And it goes back to the Alex Hormozy quote of how do you get this list and build this list for yourself of all the amazing things that God has done in your life. So that way, when you're hit with anxiety at a random time, you can open up this list of all these amazing things that God has done in your life, and suddenly you start to get confidence again. And that is the active fight against anxiety. And I do have a personal story because a couple years ago I went through a divorce. Talk about crippling anxiety and fear. Within 2 days, I'm sitting in a new apartment, My whole life has changed. I'm essentially lost in a lot of ways. And at that time, I really didn't have a storage bank of all the amazing things that God has done in my life. I didn't have them written down.
Yeah.
So I'm sitting in anxiety and fear, and I'm just trapped in my own head, and all I can think about is the change, the lack, a lot of victim stuff. And so I was stuck in a kind of crippling anxiety and fear without what I believe to be a necessary tool to dig yourself out, which is, what's God going to do with this? So at that point, it was the first time in my life where I'm like, okay, I'm going through some horrible stuff here. I can't see my way out of it, but I know, and I think this was the Holy Spirit working through me, but I was like, I know that there are amazing things that God has done in my life, and I know that it's just not going to stop now. And so I started on this journey of journaling, and I just filled as many pages as possible with amazing things that God has done in my life. And after you do that for an hour or two, suddenly you start to have way more confidence in the fact that God can do something with this mess.
Yeah.
And so it's a huge perspective shift.
Yeah.
So, and to me, that's kind of why gratitude is a weapon against anxiety, because you shift your focus onto what God has done in your life as to all the horrible stuff that's going on.
Yeah.
I have a few more points, but just for you.
Yeah.
Is there anything that comes
No,
to
yeah.
mind?
I was gonna give a really quick story but verse, I guess, that comes to mind when Paul is he talks a lot about perseverance, and is it Romans, or can't remember, but just the act of persevering through hardships leads to honestly just fruit in your life. And like the fruit in your life, I kind of talked about this in a previous episode, is like all the good things that you want in life. It's like the hope and you finally reach that destination, you finally get the harvest, like all of these things. But that perseverance and that trial period has to come first before you reach that point in your life. And I just always come back to perseverance because God really honors that. And when I say perseverance, I mean basically you don't give up. You are like, even though you're going through a really hard time, even though you are, in the trenches, whether it be a divorce or whether it be you lost your job unexpectedly, or you broke up with your boyfriend, or whatever it is, financial problems, you still hold on to that trust that God is who he says he is, and he will deliver you. And I feel like that is where God is such a storytelling God, because there's millions and millions of stories in the Bible and, podcasts you listen to of people that go through trials and come out on the other side. But it's only through just like that perseverance and that trust that you can reach the other side, because God is a storytelling God, and he wants to work in and through you so that you can share what he's done, and you can remember for yourself, like, oh, this is what he's done. These are the ways that he's worked in me. He's the same yesterday, today, and tomorrow. Like, he's not going to change who he is. So like, who am I to say or have anxiety about this, because he's done this for me? And, and I think it's like having that hopeful expectation, that he is, you can praise that God is going to do something even before he's delivered you from something. You can still praise him because that he is a good God. And so for me, when I read those Bible stories, like, that's what I always come back to in my daily practices, because I've shared, I won't get into my personal story on this podcast, because you guys already know a lot of it, because I share a lot of my story on my solo episodes. But I think that's like the biggest thing that practice of, writing out what he's done in the past and, what I've gone through, and then being like, okay, I can sit in this really uncomfortable season or uncomfortable thoughts I'm having and release it to God, because I know that he's going to work all things for the good of those that love him. So like, all I need to do is trust, and like he's going to work it out in some way, and I think like it's a daily thing, because if I don't do that, my mind slips, and we're all human, we don't like that. That's why I'm saying like, when I say this, I'm saying like, this is a practice. Like you have to do it every single day, because anxiety and fear is real, and there's a million reasons why you should be fearful and anxious, because the world is filled with things that can make you fearful and anxious. But, that's why you have to like take your thoughts captive every day. And so that was just a little tidbit.
I love that. Taking your thoughts captive.
Yeah.
Because that's a very common scripture, but like, what does it actually mean?
Yeah.
So, for my daily practices, just to be practical, like let's say it's 9 in the morning, 10 in the morning, and I have fear and anxiety, and you can feel it in your chest.
Yeah.
Your thoughts are racing. And the number one thing I do when I feel anxiety is I say out loud, I'm forgetting something. I'm forgetting something. And not that I'm forgetting, it's not like this panic of like, oh, I'm forgetting that to do something. It's like, I'm forgetting something. I'm forgetting like just how the disciples felt anxiety in the boat. And Jesus essentially said to them, you're forgetting something.
Yeah.
Do you not remember?
Yeah.
Like you're being forgetful. Your anxiety is coming because you forgot something. And that is how I stop my anxiety in its tracks. And, so let's say it's 10 a.m., I'm having anxiety about work, or I'm having anxiety about, let's say, our relationship. I'm like, wait, I'm being bamboozled right now. God has not given me a spirit of fear. I'm forgetting God's ways right now, and I'll start to go down that rabbit hole. And this is why I think in scripture it says the only really real way to please God's heart is with faith. Because it's almost insulting, and hear me out, it's almost insulting to God when you'll go through a little bit of a tough time and you lose heart, you get anxious, and you have fear. And I feel like God's sitting there being like,
yeah, there's so many moments.
Yeah, but just think about that, visualize that for it. God's like, I'm right here. Did you forget who I am and the part I play in your life? Like you're forgetting that, like I'm right here.
I feel like there's so many moments in the Bible where that's even Jesus says that, like even on the boat, when there's like that big storm in the boat and he's sleeping, and then he wakes up, he's like, have you forgotten who I am? And he calms it immediately. It's just like,
and that's that daily practice, because let's say there's two different people going through the same scenario. You have that one person that, they both have fear, and then one person steps back and they say, hold on, I'm missing something. God is good. God is real. He's going to deliver me from this. To me, what is that? That's faith. That person has actual real confidence in God. And they take a second to back up and say, hold on, I'm not going to be deceived right now. I'm literally, anxiety and fear is, you're being deceived in that moment. It literally says clearly that God does not give you that. And so you have a person that steps back and they say, I'm forgetting something. God is way better than I think he is. He's way more powerful, way more involved. He knows what's going on. And you start to say these affirmations of who God is. And I feel like that's what pleases God, because he's sitting there being like, oh, shoot, this guy actually believes I am who I say I am. He actually thinks I'm helpful. This person actually believes that I'm a good God. And I think that's really what pleases the Lord's heart.
Yeah.
And so I try to do that in any moment. So anytime I feel anxiety or fear, I now know that I have an opportunity to please God's heart and boast about him. And I do the reverse Uno card as quickly as possible. So suddenly, the enemy, whatever you want to call it, the devil is trying to get you to doubt yourself and do whatever. Now I take that thought captive and spin it and be like, oh, right now is the opportunity where I can show faith.
Yeah.
And sometimes I can't do that in my mind. I have to get out my journal. I have to go to this section in my journal where I've written out all the amazing things that God has done.
Yeah, you got to read it.
I got to read it out loud. And then after doing that for a second, I'm just like, oh.
You're unstoppable. I have to do that too. I wanted to point something out before I wanted to end this with like maybe some just practical things to help people. But before we do that, what I don't want people to hear when they listen to this is, you know, like having a grateful heart and have positive attitude it's like the best thing and it's a practice, but it's not a way to just forget about everything. It's not an excuse to just be like, okay, I'm super grateful and God's good and, you know, like be a little bit delusional. Because I think that God puts or he allows like certain feelings, like our feelings they shouldn't drive the car, but they're there. Like God gave us feelings for a reason and emotions. And so we should, you know, pause and, you know, take note of them for a reason. And I think like sometimes a lot of moments God could be tapping you and trying to show you and tell you something. And I think it's important to not to just like shove them aside and just be like, well, God's good, I'm staying positive, but like paying attention to your feelings, like let them pass, like feel everything. Do not shove them down because they always come back up later. And a lot of times they can come out in a way that's not good. And so I always think like, you know, there's certain friends I've had or certain situations where, you know, sometimes that can come across as like delusional, like, oh, that person's just like in la la land and they think everything's fine, you know, but I think that God is also very like detail oriented, practical God. And he wants to give you tools and things to help you. Maybe that's like a conversation with a friend that you should have, or maybe that's like, he's tugging at your heart to do something, or he's, like, you know, because it's okay to have bad days, I guess is what I'm trying to say. Like, you shouldn't just like push everything aside and, you know, be delusional in your life. Of course not. I think that it's important to like be honest and be real with yourself.
Yeah, you coached me big time on that, and I think that's because I back to the story, like through the divorce, huge in anxiety and fear, and then I flipped to the complete opposite, you know, which is I was just delusionally excited and happy and God is good, but there's still all this excuse my language, but bullshit going on. And there was a point where I was too delusional and I was just like, I don't have to worry about this, you know. But it's almost like gratitude will give you the power to appropriately deal with the things that you should be worried about, you know, because like you just need to be worried about the right things. And I think that's what gratitude really helped me do, is understand where do I need to put my mental energy and where am I just kind of being deceived. And that's just something I can't really talk about too much right now because I'm in the middle of that process of figuring that out. And that's the middle of my journey right now, is like, okay, how do I have such confidence in who God is and his ways? And then how do I appropriately tackle my daily tasks according to that posture? Because
I think like it all comes back to, you know, God honors your perseverance and your hard work. So like anytime you read about a harvest, like I don't know, I just always come back to like hard work and discipline, because it's actually going to be the topic of my next episode. That is going to be a solo episode. But when you have biblical or godly like systems and disciplines in place in your life, like God honors that, because he honors the hard work that you have. So long as you're, you know, focusing on things that you can control and your efforts every day and like giving the rest up to God, like that's kind of how I view it, like that, and start my morning. So to get into like practical things that I do, I think it's important to write out like things that you can control and things you can't control. And what you can control are your efforts and your habits in your good habits. And so like good habits for me are just, working out, taking care of my body, and being diligent and like trying my best every day at work and whatever it is, and then leaving the rest up to God. And a lot of times what I'll do is I'll ask God questions because, a lot of times when you have anxiety or fear, it can be tempting to ask God, why is this happening to me? Like, why God, why? Like, I'm so upset right now. I'm anxious. Like, what's going on? I'm freaking out. There's chaos all around me. But instead of asking God why, I always like to ask God, what's next? Like, what are you trying to show me right now? And I'll write it out every time. Like, I'll write out, okay, this is everything God's done in my life. This is what I'm currently doing today. These are my efforts today. This is my to-do list. This is what I cannot control. It's out of my control, God. Like, and then I'll end with a question. I'll say, what's next? What do you want me to know? What do you have to say about this? Like, what do you have to say about this anxious thought I'm having? I'll write it out in detail, and then I'll just be silent and I'll listen. And a lot of times I'll go on a walk without my phone or whatever it is. A lot of times it involves me doing something without my phone because phones can be crazy, and then I'll just be silent and I'll listen. And sometimes I don't have a grand answer that day, and that's okay. God doesn't sometimes speak loudly in the moment we want him to. Sometimes it does come in silence, and that's okay too. Just being okay and accepting the silence and like the nature of God can be therapeutic too, because you trust that he will show you in time. Like, I think that's kind of the release I've been having recently. Something I've learned is like trusting also means that you're trusting God. You're trusting that God will show you. Like, you're letting go of the fear that you won't have the answers or he's just going to leave you high and dry. I think like for me, I'm like, okay, even if I do get silence after this walk, I'm not going to panic because I know God will redirect my steps if I'm taking the wrong step in this area, or just like trusting that God will show you the right way in the right time.
Yeah.
And it's okay to be confused for a couple weeks about a certain thing because you know that God will show you, if that makes sense.
Yeah. No, I love that.
Yeah.
And this will kind of be my last point on gratitude, and just more speaking to, if there's anyone listening, and let's say, obviously we're advising you to sit down and write out all the amazing things that God has done in your life. But let's say you get your piece of paper out and you're the type of person that's listening to this, where you get the piece of paper out and you're like, okay, all the amazing things that God has done in my life, and you can't think of one. And that might be the case for some people. Luckily I grew up in church and I had mentors, and people say, oh, that's God's doing something good there. God's doing something good there. So I am very privileged that I grew up that way, to where, from a young age, I know where God has been doing good things in my life. But let's say you're not, let's say you're just on this journey, you're trying to be thankful and positive and just kind of get on good terms with God, and you're sitting down and you're like, shoot, I don't think God's done anything good in my life. Or let's say, you believe in God, but for some reason you can't think of anything that good that he's done. I would encourage you to just put on the piece of paper, God, do something good in my life. And that's a prayer. And if you sit down there and you're like, all right, God hasn't done anything good, or at least I can't notice or remember anything that good God has done, ask him right in there. Say, God, I'm listening now. Do something good today.
Yeah.
Do something good today. And this is where he is so gracious with I don't want to call it new believers, but he's gracious and he'll do something good.
He will, yeah.
That day. And then the next day you'll have one thing to write down.
Yeah.
And then it's just going to be this rapid progression. And, he'll take steps back, and there might be like a couple weeks where you're like, man, nothing's good's going on, and that's where you have to up your faith and be like, well, he did something really good 4 weeks ago, and I'm not just going to, leave my faith because 4 weeks have gone by without without a miracle. So just start that journey now if you can. And I promise you, if you just sit there and write out, God, do something good today, please, he'll show up. So I just want to encourage you for anyone listening that doesn't have a big rapport of God's goodness in your life. So,
and I think he's just always like, I think that's a good practice of, just constantly paying attention to him and like, God, I surrender to you in this area of my life. Like, please show me something today about it. And he will, he just wants you to talk to him and open yourself up to him, because that surrender means you trust, and trust means he can work in you. And when he works in you, he's telling a story, and that, so it's just all like interconnected. And that control aspect of what we all want control over our lives. Like, I think every human has that battle within them. And so, but as soon as you just say, I don't have control over this, is when he can work and do things that you can't.
Every day.
So, is there anything else that you want to wrap this up with?
No, not really. I think we just, with the biblical stories, they kind of give us insight on how God works in our life. And then what does that actually mean to you? And then what are your daily practices?
Yeah.
And I know that this has kind of been messy and sloppy, because this could be a 6-hour podcast.
It could, yeah. And this could be like part 1, 2, 3.
But just as long as you understand that, again, when you're feeling anxiety, just think for a second, I'm missing something, and pause and say, God, I'm feeling fear right now. So obviously you take ownership. You say, I'm forgetting something about you, and then you go to your journal. You look at all the great things that God has done. And then a proactive thing to do is literally to say, God, you're going to do something good today. And you just have a fun day where you try and find all these little nuggets of goodness that God will do. And that's really how, I go about my day, because I'm going through a really interesting time in life where it's like, I love music. I love my relationship. There's so many great things going on. But what really gets me excited is like, is looking for these little nuggets every day. And it may be just where God has been generous, or, a thought that I have that I've never had before. And I'm just like, oh, the big guy's doing good things. And then I'll write it down and continue. So it's like this ongoing active relationship. But I think that's all I would want to say at this point for gratitude.
To wrap it up, just this whole topic of like gratitude. I don't know what the title of this episode's going to be quite yet, but I kind of want it to just be like positive, how to cultivate a positive attitude and gratitude in your life. I would just encourage all of you to make it a daily practice, because it truly does take practice to live this way and have this mindset. I think it's like, because there's people that can be cynical and bitter from hardships in life. I know, and then there's people that I think it's just an active choice every day. Like, joy is a choice, gratitude is a choice. Like, you're choosing to be grateful and joyful, instead of letting these things get to you. And so I would just encourage you all to just be so like mindful of God and ask him questions, because I do that all the time. Like, I'm constantly just being like, God, what do you want me to know about this? Like, or if I'm really like down bad one day or like feeling really fearful about something, like I'll just ask God a question and then I'll just journal. I think journaling just helped me a lot. Just keep my mind right on what matters.
Yeah, that what you were just talking about reminds me of the analogy of working out, because you'll meet people in life who are so positive and grateful, and it's almost intimidating in the same way that you meet someone who's in insanely good shape, and it's almost like intimidating, and positive people, they have a very good mental diet. Yeah. And you always have the option, so it is your personal responsibility in this world you can have a horrible mental diet, or you can have a good mental diet, and you have to take the responsibility and be proactive.
Right. Just like you take care of your body and diet, you take care of your mind in the same way.
Exactly.
It's all interconnected.
And so in the whole thing of writing down all the good things that God has done, it's like that's my diet. These are the things I have to meditate on.
Yeah.
You know, and you'll start getting in better mental shape day after day after day.
Yeah,
after
I
day.
agree.
And just like if you're working with a fitness trainer and you're having some hard times, your trainer is going to be like, he's going to correct you. If you're having knee pains or, you're not making progress, he's going to remind you of something that you're forgetting, to get you back on track.
Good analogy right there.
Yeah, and it's just, I'm
that was good.
I'm on it here.
Yeah, that was really good. Good job.
Thanks, guys. Really appreciate it.
Yeah, so I hope this encourages someone today. This is a very fun, serious episode. Some of our episodes are more entertaining, I feel like, but there's a season for every episode.
Yeah, not every part of life is entertaining.
Yeah,
so.
yeah, but I hope this was helpful, and thank you, Tyler, for coming on and kind of sharing your outlook, because I think it's good to talk about this. We kind of had a broad overview of what we wanted to talk about today, but that was I felt like the way that you kind of view positivity is very similar to how I do it. And, I think everyone's daily practices might be a little bit different, and that's beautiful too. These are just kind of some things that I've learned that work for me. But yeah, that's about it, you guys. Anything else?
No. I'm just trying to think of something witty and funny.
I know, me too. It's just not my day today, you guys.
Yeah, but this is just one of the serious parts of life. But it's so important because this conversation bleeds into all areas of life.
It really does.
So I would get out your journal.
Get out your journal. Get one of them stick journals.
Get to the gym. Now.
Write out everything. Okay, I don't know where that country accent came from. Have a great day, you guys. I will see you guys next week.
Peace.